Fighting fire with fire. Here's your look at the Diamond Select Firestar PVC Diorama Gallery statue. When her mutant powers manifested, Angelica Jones was sent to live at the infamous Massachusetts Academy, where she studied under the severe tutelage of Emma Frost, aka the White Queen, becoming one of the original Hellions. After resigning from the Academy, Jones, now known as Firestar, enlisted as a founding member of the New Warriors, with whom she battled the forces of evil, finding many allies, including the heroic X-Men along the way. This gallery diorama of Firestar is based on her appearance in Marvel Comics. It features detailed sculpting and paint details, and is made of high-quality PVC. Before this review starts to get a little hot under the collar, how about the first thing we do is figure out how tall the gallery statue of Firestar actually is. To do that, I'm going to grab my ruler here and put it as close to her head as I can possibly get it. Now, the statue is a little taller than 10 inches, but not by much. I'm going to go ahead and say that she's 10 1/4 inches in height, or 26 centimeters tall. This review is possible because of the folks over at Diamond Select, who kindly provided this sample of the gallery statue of Firestar that we could have a look at in this video. I'm going to start things off first by looking at her display base. Picking the statue up, there's not a lot of weight really happening here, but I feel like more of the weight obviously is down below in the base here. I want to draw your attention to the fact it does have an opaque bottom to the display base. I wonder if this is something that they planned afterwards, because if you look at it, it looks like it's finished on the inside. It's hollow, yes, but I wonder if they did actually put this on afterwards, realizing that the base wasn't big enough to sustain the weight of the figure, especially the way that she's got her arm out like this. I wonder if that would have caused problems with stability for the statue, that they added this after the fact. Not really sure. But what I am sure of, though, it's a nice looking sharp display base, engulfed in flames, as you can see that the character is perched on top of it. And being that this is hollow, I wonder if you could actually pry this off and put a light source on the inside, or put a light source on the bottom of this. So whenever you put this back on, it would illuminate the coloring of the flame. The flame itself, of course, is using translucent plastic, but very nice, rich colors of red, orange, and yellow get incorporated in there. It seems to be more darker as it gets closer to her feet. But again, I like the use of the yellows, the oranges, and the red. Diamond really always does a great job when it comes to sculpting and painting flames. We get a little bit further from the display base. You can see a great pose for Firestar. We'll talk more about that in a second. Let's zoom in and have a look at her head sculpt. Now, I say this in only a complimentary way, but while looking at the head sculpt here for Firestar, the first thing I thought of was a Barbie doll. And the only reason why my mind even went that route anyways, because now that I have a daughter who's collecting Barbies, I see Barbies more frequently than I may have done before. I don't know, again, looking at the head sculpt, it kind of reminded me of Barbie. Big smile on her face. I mean, again, it's a nice, pretty looking Firestar head sculpt. But again, maybe it's the roundness of her face, why I'm landing on the idea that she reminds me a little bit of Barbie. The coloring is so good on this, though. I mean, coloring is something consistently we'll talk about when it comes to the rest of the statue. But even just like the head sculpt alone, the darker coloring of the skin tone is one thing I really think they handled well. Considering for the fact that the mask is orange, and that the hair has a mixture of oranges and yellows, I think if the skin was too light, it would have made the face look bleached out. By keeping the colors more warmer the way that they've done, I think the skin tone complements the colors that they use for the rest of the figure's head and the rest of the figure's body. It also seems the way that they've painted in the eyes that the mask is a separate piece. It doesn't look like it's a separate piece that would have been glued over top of the existing face, because I could imagine it would be difficult to get in there with a paintbrush and paint in those eyes while the mask is still in place. Yeah, it does look like the mask may be a separate piece that was put over top of it. Whatever the reasoning was, it certainly is a successful looking head sculpt. Again, very much mirroring the Barbie doll, if you ask me. I'll spin this around so you can see the way that they've sculpted in the hair. Really nice work done here on the paint. The dry brushing of yellow in some places look like it's just, doesn't seem like it has some rhyme or reason. In some places it's only just sporadically placed. And in the back area here, it kind of feels like they went a little too generous with the yellow. I would have broken it up a little bit. I like how it works here with only a few strands being painted in the yellow. I feel like it's maybe too much yellow here. Other than that, though, I think like the paint on the hair is nice. It's a little on the pale side up here. As you can see, it kind of gets more of a lighter pinkish orange. As it gets further down, this is kind of the color I wish that they would have kept consistent for the rest of the hair. On the top, I feel like, again, it's a little on the lighter side. As for the rest of the costume is one thing I really want to commend them for doing. Though not only did they sculpt the flames, I don't know if you can see that by the way I'm running my finger across it, this isn't something that's just painted in place. The flames are actually something that's lifted on the suit, as opposed to just painting it. I think that was handled well. But the colorings is so good on this. Not only do you have the really rich colors of the red, the orange again, and the yellow being utilized, but the use of the airbrushing to accent the features on her body, for example. I can only hope that the camera's doing proper justice as I spin this around. Now, I do have one issue when it comes to her body, and I only would point this out as being something that's probably unique to mine, is I have a little chip right here on the top of her shoulder. It kind of even looks like it was banged against something, that a little bit of paint has come off. But at least the place where they've put it, I'm sure not intentionally, I'm not going to see it anyways the way I'm going to have the figure posed, or the statue posed. You can see that they've also sculpted in flames here on the ends of her fingers. And I really like the way that they handle this too, as opposed to just giving her like an orb of fire with sort of an entrail coming out from this. It seems to be a continuation of her hands. You see that? Little individual digits of flames that extend out from her fingertips. You can see sort of as I tip this up like this. I think that's neat. I wouldn't have even thought of that, really. I would have just gone with sculpting in the flames. But the idea that they've actually sculpted kind of an outer glove of flames, really nice work on their part. And of course we have this one right here, not to surprise you by bringing that in. Again, nice use of a translucent plastic, which again, I'm assuming it's yellow, and gone in there then and painted the additional orange and the red. The statue does things really, really well. One thing, again, is one of my favorite aspects of it is the pose that they've given it. Really classic looking Firestar. Now, to be fair, I'm not as big of a fan or not as familiar of the character Firestar in the comics. I was more introduced to Firestar in Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends from 1981. An earlier cartoon I think would have aired NBC. That sounds about right, back in the 80s. That was my introduction to Firestar, and probably maybe some of the introductions of Firestar to many viewers that are watching this right now. The coloring, the costume as a whole has changed, of course, over the comics. It's not the same suit that she would have had in Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, but I really think that that's a really well done job of Firestar. Again, looks a little like a Barbie in my personal opinion. But Barbie's not a bad thing at all. She's a happy, spry-looking character with a big smile across her face and very nicely painted from the folks over at Diamond Select. While I may think that Firestar maybe bears just a slight resemblance to a Mattel Barbie doll, and again, if you're wondering why that idea even popped in my head in the first place, my daughter now collects Barbies, so the likelihood of me finding a Barbie doll laying on the floor somewhere happens a lot more now than it ever did before. Even if there was an inspiration of Barbie when they first sculpted the head sculpt, it translates actually to a pretty looking Firestar. Not only is her face sculpted well, but the rest of her hair, and of course the way that they've posed the statue as well. I really like the way that she's flying forward like this, with really only just the flames keeping things stable. Again, I have to wonder though if they added that opaque display base, the bottom of it, to give some additional stability. Because if not for that, why wouldn't they have just sculpted a larger base in the first place? Did they sculpt the base the size it is right now and then realize it just wasn't stable enough to keep the statue upright that they ended up having to add that opaque plastic base on the bottom of it? I don't know what the story is behind that, but it certainly does keep for a very stable looking statue when you're putting it on the shelf. Things also I like about the statue is the way that they've transitioned the colors on it. And I hope I've done enough of the justice of pointing that out in this review. The way that they've got, like, if you look at her gloves, for example, the closer it gets to the flames, instead of having that more darker red, it transitions very nicely into almost more of an off yellowish red. The same thing applies for the bottom of her feet. Bottom of the soles and like the tops of her feet are more yellow and then transitions nicely into the rest of the red. The use of airbrushing is really nicely handled here on Firestar. The head sculpt, again, going with the more darker routes of that kind of the skin tone that they went with, works actually better than I think if they went with a lighter skin tone. I think it would have just made her look too bleached out. That the darker colors, the warmer colors that they went with, really, again, complement this statue really nicely. And again, let's point out the fact that she has fingertip flames. Just fingertip flames. Really nice ideas kind of put together to get us a Firestar. If you guys are a big fan of the original Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends or have followed Firestar in the comics, it's a great statue to be picking up and putting as part of your collection. Again, a big thank you to the folks over at Diamond Select that provided the sample of the Firestar Gallery diorama statue that we could have a look at in this review. What do you guys think of it? Let me know down below in the comments section. And if you are new to this channel, you're enjoying the content that you're seeing, make sure you can do a couple of things for yourself. First of which, you can hit that subscribe button down below. Second of which, you can turn on the bell notification so you get those friendly reminders whenever new videos are going to be popping up. And third of which, make sure you're coming back to this channel regularly. Because even though we have wrapped up things for Firestar, there's going to be a ton of new Diamond Select reviews coming your way. And as well, at the very end of this video, if you wanted to check out more from Diamond Select, check out my playlist where I've covered off figures, statues, and so much more from Diamond Select. Lots of stuff coming your way, guys. So as always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.